Welcome, everybody, to Court Cousins' emergency #1 overall pick segment today. I've got on the Shaquille O'Neal. Pich has the Dwight Howard behind him. I've got Shaq behind me. These are the #1 picks because, Pich, we've landed in the promised land at #1. First off, how you feeling right now, dude?
Not as amped as everybody else is, to be honest. And I'm not here
Debbie
to
Downer.
be. Well, I'm not being Debbie Downer.
No.
I just didn't feel like we need the #1 pick
True.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
We can talk about that and get into it as we go. I am glad we got it because now we get to decide what we want. We don't have to be dictated. But either way, I feel like we were going to get a good player because I didn't see us falling out of the top 3, to be honest. So
I was trying to have low expectations. So once we got into that top 3, like you, I was kind of cool with how the chips may fall. But now we're here, ladies and gentlemen, with the #1 overall pick. And for us Magic fans, this is a delight, the likes that we don't normally get to indulge.
well, we've done it 3 times, which is quite a bit for some franchises. They
That's
would like
fair.
to have had 4 in this short amount of time. So I'd consider us maybe a little bit lucky, obviously. We've had some good luck in the past, which were some franchise-changing moments, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There is nobody at the top of this draft that is a Shaquille O'Neal. There might be some Chris Webbers.
Okay.
But I'm saying, there's not a clear-cut LeBron or, David Robinson. There's nobody up at that top that you're like, this is a franchise-changing guy. Doesn't mean they can't become it, but there's no slam dunk runaway favorite, which is why there's so much debate over this topic, not just amongst the Magic community, but amongst all the NBA community at this point. So that's what we're going to have a little bit today, is a little bit of debate about probably those top 3 players.
Those top 3 players. And, when Dwight came out, there was some debate around Emeka Okafor and who we should select.
I remember this very well.
Okay.
And I remember being very concerned.
Yeah.
And I knew from watching a lot of college basketball that Jahlil Okafor had peaked in college. Very great player.
Emeka
Great
Okafor.
player at UConn. Yeah, Emeka, sorry.
Yeah.
Emeka Okafor, great player in college. I remember seeing him and going, this is it for him. Please don't draft him #1. Even though I didn't know crap about Dwight Howard, because there wasn't YouTube out then for me to readily look up quotes about him. I'm just going by what the feeling and the vibe was. Here's a young guy that can develop and get better versus a guy who's peaked. And sure, he won the Rookie of the Year, but he didn't have the longevity or the career that Dwight is still having.
Right, that's just
so we made the right call there. I have a vibe we're going to make the right call again.
Okay.
But I want you to remember how tight that was.
Right.
And how many people were thinking it was on the fence, and how many of those people were wrong.
And being from Connecticut, I think I found myself in the Emeka Okafor camp at that time. Young and dumb. And
It would have been a lot different
yes.
if we had gone with him
yes.
versus Dwight Howard.
So we have a big decision now. And let's have the debate out, Pich. I want to... Pich has been very close-lipped, ladies and gentlemen, about any of his opinions. I've been trying to pry him open these last couple days, verbiage, and he's given me nothing. So, Pich, now that we got the record button on, what are you thinking about? Who do you want the Magic to draft? Or you can answer, who do you actually think we will draft?
All right, well, I'm not really sure who we're going to draft, and that's what gives me pause and gives me the nerves.
Yeah.
So as many as people were nerved about I want to get the 1 pick, I'm more nervous about what they're actually going to do.
Yeah.
That's where I'm nervous. I would like to see them take Jabari Smith Jr. That's
okay.
I also would really like Paolo Banchero. If we
Okay.
end up with either one of those players by drafting either one #1 overall and keep them, I'm cool with it.
All right.
If we draft somebody and trade down, I could also be very intrigued by some offers that would come on that table as well. As long as Chet Holmgren never puts on an Orlando Magic jersey except to maybe support Jalen Suggs at a future playoff game, I will be a happy man. I just don't want to be on the risky side of wondering whether he's going to hold up. And again, I see him as the Emeka Okafor of this draft. Everyone's thinking he could be a top guy, a big guy. And he may have a good season or two. He could be a first-team all-rookie next year. But how many big, tall, white, lanky guys like that last to their even late 20s without having some injury problems? He'd have to completely change his whole makeup. And if you start to change up your beef, which a lot of people are saying, they want to see some more meat on the bones of Chet Holmgren.
Right.
But then that changes the way he plays. Maybe he's not as good a shooter then. Maybe he can't get up to block shots as well. Maybe it helps him. I don't know. I'm not saying the young man can't have a nice career.
Okay.
And I don't have anything against him personally. He's never kicked my dog or anything like that. I just feel like there's a lot of question marks with him. And when you're drafting number one,
Yeah.
I want no questions. I want guaranteed stud. I don't want question marks. So if they draft Chet Holmgren, it better be to trade him to some other sucker that thinks he's the man.
All right, I guess I'll start there. I'll take the Chet and I'll run with that.
Do you think we're going to draft somebody that's different from what you want?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Well, what are those?
I just have a really bad feeling that our front office is going to get enamored with Chet Holmgren. The connection with Jalen Suggs, our front office is always high on drafting high character guys, as they say. And if you thought Jalen Suggs was a high character guy, well, you got to think Chet Holmgren, coming from pretty much an identical upbringing of sorts. They came all the way up through AAU in high school.
Sure.
Then I would imagine that Chet is also that type of high character guy that you're looking for. This is not besmirching either Paolo or Jabari to say that they're not high character guys.
Sure,
I think they
sure.
both are.
Uh-huh.
I just feel like our front office is falling in love with Chet. Not only that, but his lankiness. You know how we love just long limb dudes for no reason, just to get in passing lanes, I guess, and be disruptive. And Chet Holmgren has a little bit of that. He's pretty savvy on defense. He moves his hips well. I think he's going to be a really good defender immediately in the NBA at the 4 position. And 7.4 blocks per 100 possessions in NCAA is fantastic. But as you always point out, that was against boys, and now he's going to play with men, so it's a different beast. I think he's the best defender of these 3 that we're talking about right now: Jabari Smith, Chet Holmgren, and Paolo Banchero. I don't like Chet because many of the reasons you said. He seems like a project to me, and just for where our team is right now, we're rebuilding, but I don't think we need a project. Like, we don't need a 2, 3, 4 year guy. We had that kind of injury down season.
Yes.
Where we had Isaac and Fultz, 2 starters for us, out. It's almost like when the Spurs had David Robinson out and then they, get tanked and got Tim Duncan and then made a run to the finals the next year. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're going to the finals next year. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just drawing a likeness between, I don't think that our actual team was as bad as our record.
Right.
And necessarily, if we had all our guys healthy, we would not be picking number 1.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be in that conversation.
Agreed.
So I think we're going to bounce back fast, and hopefully the play-in tournament and the playoffs is a realistic goal for us next year. And if we take on Chet, a guy that probably needs to put on some weight, a guy that right now has a limited offensive bag, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he kind of has that drive one way, spin the other way, and then go to the hoop. But defense has caught on to that type of stuff. He kind of shut him down by the end of the season. He's got to take time to develop into some type of offensive player. He passes pretty well. He's got some pretty good court vision, but he doesn't shoot well on the move. He's kind of a pick and pop guy. He's got to have his feet set to have a good high percentage shot. And I just don't want to wait for Chet Holmgren. And there's too many question marks because we could wait and nothing could happen too.
Right. I agree. You're making the points that I feel.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of my thing is I felt like if we didn't get the number 1 pick and we landed at like 3 or 4 and Chet fell to us, I felt like, well, there's a chance we're going to just take him here because we think he's the best prospect on the board.
Right.
And I think that's a waste of a pick still, but I could see why they'd make that move. Now that we have number 1, I feel like it's sort of like we can't make that guy the number 1 pick. And when I hear somebody say good character guy, I hear guy least likely to go out on the town clubbing when we go play Miami. And if you look at the 3 fellas, maybe that's true. But I don't know, I'm sure he's a nice kid. I'm sure they're all nice kids. It's really not even about that. But, yeah, we got to keep Jalen Suggs out of their ear. Because you know what?
Yeah.
I have a lot of good friends.
Yes.
A lot of good friends.
Yeah.
But if I'm out on the court and I'm trying to win games, I'm not drafting my friends first because I only have one friend that can ball. So let's not just pair our friends together because we want to hang out with our friend. Let's
Right.
try to make the best possible team we can get here. Like, need to
Yeah.
not be impacted by that.
I agree. I love you, Jalen, but this is about the team and the fan base and the franchise, and we need to make the right decision for
Hey,
the
and if
franchise.
Jalen gets that bent about it, go play with Chet wherever he lands.
Ooh, okay, Peach. Well, the other guy, so you said you'd be happy with Jabari Smith Jr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I think he's got a good skill set and a good bag. I think maybe Paulo's more ready to be an impact player today. But I don't think they were going to draft Paolo number 1. I really just feel like people are feeling like he's going to land at 2 or 3 at this point. So I think we only get Paolo if there's some sort of trade offer. Like
Okay.
if Oklahoma City really wants Chet and they want us to draft, they're
Worried that we'll draft him
Maybe they'll swap picks with us and give us something else.
Yeah,
So,
maybe. Okay. Let's talk about
there's
that in a second.
scenarios.
Let's talk about those scenarios because that's an interesting conversation. But I want to finish kind of running down these 3 guys.
Okay.
So Jabari Smith Jr., my perspective on him, the best shooter in the draft, it seems, and the guy's 6'10".
Right, and
So-
the games I think that you saw, and the last few games I saw, were some of his worst games. So
Yeah.
not
So
a great
I didn't have a
way to
great
judge
look
it,
at some
but-
of the full games. So we've caught a couple. I remember we went over to Craft 260. We watched that game. I think that Jabari is a great piece guy. He does remind me a lot of Rashard Lewis, but Rashard Lewis didn't drive that ship at all for our team. Jabari Smith. He can shoot the rock. He can shoot under duress, contested threes. But do we really want to take a three-point shooter as the number 1 overall draft pick? He has a lot of defensive tenacity, yes. He and Chet are definitely above Paolo in terms of defense. But there were spurts where we had a top 5, top 10 defense last year.
True.
So that's not our largest area of need. And with Markelle and then hopefully everything crossed here, J.I. coming back, there's a lot of duplication with J.I. and Chet's game. So if J.I. is coming back, and I know we probably shouldn't count on that at all, but I got to be optimistic, and I think it will be really revealing what Jonathan Isaac's status is on draft night. If we take Jabari or Chet especially, I see more duplication there, then that makes me feel like, okay, Hammond and Weltgod are seeing behind the scenes. They're looking at J.I. They may be telling us everything's okay, but everything is not okay. If we draft Chet, everything is not okay with J.I. That's just my opinion, because
Or you could end that sentence earlier. Everything is not okay.
yes, period. So I don't want to draft Jabari Smith Jr. as a three-point shooter. I think he's limited on ball. Like he's not a good creator from the limited stuff that we saw and the highlights now that we've been digging into. He will be a good NBA player, but it's just not what I'm after
Okay.
right now. He doesn't get separation very easy. He's not a great decision maker sometimes under pressure. And what I want, Pish, what I need for our Orlando Magic is another guy who can play make, who can score one-on-one, who can draw defenses, who has good vision and
Oh, you
can
want
pass
Jalen?
that.
You want Jaden Ivey?
I want Paolo Banchero, ladies and gentlemen. Let's stop this. This is ridiculous. You look at the guy, he is the most NBA ready of all these guys. We can argue about potential till we're blue in the face, but potential is in the future, and the future does not exist, ladies and gentlemen. Right now, Paolo Banchero is the best player, and it's not like he doesn't have potential either. He can still develop and continue to grow. It's just he's a dominant scorer, and I think that's really what we needed this year. We saw our team. Cole Anthony, with Markelle out and J.I. out, Cole Anthony was trying to do it all on his own at the beginning of the year. He couldn't do it.
Yep.
He could not do it. Franz has developed into a great option. Can he be a primary option and a primary ball handler? I don't really think that's his game. I think he's an off-the-ball cutting guy. I do want to see the ball in his hands more this year. Don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. But I think Franz is better living in between and feasting there, and he will feast there. Paolo is already a 3-level scorer. He's got a huge arsenal of moves. He can shoot off the dribble. He has a shot fake with a step through. He's got a step back 3. He finishes at the rim with contact. A true 3-level scorer. He's a patient scorer. He does not get into distress like we saw happen with Jalen a lot this year. Driving into the paint. Oh no, it's closed off. What do I do? That's not Paolo. And looking at some of his highlights and watching the games through the tournament, there were times when he would get closed down on his drives, but he stuck with it. And he was able to
there were times during the ACC tournament where that happened too. I mean, it definitely happened to him from time to time. And you know what? I looked over to my guy over here, and he's like,
Ramsey?
"We don't need any more Duke guys." And I was like, "All right, I feel it." I agree with you, though. I think he's got the most in his bag that I've seen currently. But I was hoping that, like, if we fell into the 2 or 3 spot, that's when we'd get Paolo Banchero. I didn't think we were going to get the number 1 pick. So I kind of was always living in a world where Jabari Smith was number 1, and I just didn't think we were getting number 1. So I was hoping we were going to land Paolo somehow and avoid the Chet situation. So that's where I'm at. I can't argue against you, though. I think Paul is going to be a very good player, and he is the scorer that we need. I think you're underselling what Jabari Smith can bring as a scorer, and I think it helps that he has an NBA father to turn to. We know it's gone well for Cole Anthony, and it probably will go well for him as there's a lot to transition from college to the NBA that, like, he's going to be able to get right at home. That Paolo Banchero is not going to have.
Well, don't forget, Paolo has a professional basketball playing parent. His mother was a professional basketball player.
Sure, we can pretend that counts. And but I will say he looked the best in his suit on lottery night. I love the chain on his suit, looking nice. Yeah, meanwhile, Holmgren looking like he grabbed a couple of drapes off the stage at Radio City Music Hall or something. I was like, let me just put these on.
Yo, my man looked like he'd never worn a suit before. Like, what is like? It was like his first communion or something.
He may not have. He's a young guy. Maybe he hasn't had one yet.
Yeah, no one pulled him aside and was like, man, this is how you tie a tie? Maybe he's not a haircut.
As a tall, lanky guy, if your suit doesn't fit you, it really sticks out. And when you got a whole lurch look, and then you get on the microphone and deliver no charisma. By the way, like, he doesn't even like seem like a guy that, like, oh, I'd like to root for that guy on my team, like, a Cole Anthony on the mic, and I'm not, that's big time charisma. I'm not expecting everyone to have that right away, but he didn't show any, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't need Groot on my team. Like, I just don't.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paolo. Pich, you're Jabari Smith Jr. Let us know in the comments, what are you feeling? I'm loving how the Magic community, Pich, is just riled up about this. And people are fluctuating with the day and with the weather as to who they want us to pick, who we think we're going to pick. And we did a poll, and it was pretty much split. So let us know. What are you feeling, ladies and gentlemen?
Put the hashtag anyone but Chet if you're part of the group that doesn't want to go through this experiment. I know you're all out there. I've seen you. I love that you're there. Sometimes I just like your comment. Then I don't have to write one. I'm like, yeah. Good job, everybody.
Pich is trying to start a movement here.
Ultimately, we're not going to change what they do in the front office. They're going to come up with something. Welk God's got his big brain working overtime. He's going to come up with something. I'm sure they're listening to trade offers. I'm sure they're listening. Doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it. But if the right thing comes about, it would not shock me if they make a move. Yeah. And I have faith that whatever move they make is going to be right. But if they draft Chet, I will be mad.
Will you be able to get on board?
And keep him.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it was John Hammond was on Sports Talk Radio down in Orlando. I was able to catch it online. And he was talking about, take fielding calls, of course, for trades. And he was actually asked, do you know right now who you would pick? And he said, yeah. He said, yeah, but things change. He said, yes, if I had to make a pick right now, I could make the pick.
Right.
But we haven't interviewed the guys. We haven't done all that. But he said we're definitely fielding calls. And, of course, you would. If you're a responsible GM, you're going to field calls for trades. Let's talk about that, Pich. That's something that you've been bringing up to me a lot. And I don't know if I see
we've done it once.
Yeah.
To great success.
Yeah, we've done it once with not good success, too, in the Alfred Payton trade.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd that one go?
Not well. We traded away, Alfred Payton. They got Dario Saric and a pick that became, I forget, but
pick became somebody good.
Yeah, I mean, Alfred Payton did make the all-rookie team, so it's not like he was
It looked okay at first.
It did look okay.
Which, again, is the way I feel like Chet is going to work himself into. People are going to be like, well, see, he's not as bad as you thought he was going to be. It's like, well, all right, we got to...
Yeah. Give
see
me
a body of work here.
3-4 years. Yeah. Okay. So what are you thinking about in terms of trading the number 1 overall pick, Pish?
Well, I think there's some teams that might want to move up or might be in love with a player. And more importantly, I've heard that the Magic really liked Shaedon Sharpe, which doesn't really fit in with the current roster that we have. But if they're that in love with him and somebody else wants something else and they feel like they could trade down to get him or let the picks fall as they may and then trade afterwards, if that deal's on the table, we might be listening. I don't know. Like, it's the thing. I don't think they could draft Shaedon number 1 if they really liked him, because people will be like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, and then it puts a lot of pressure on a young man who didn't play college basketball.
Right.
So I don't think that's a good move either. But I think if they found a way to trade and somehow get him, it would probably involve losing some of our guards. Maybe, like I just suggested, somehow Suggs goes to play wherever Holmgren goes.
Oh, my
and
God.
somebody else wants to pair them together, and they're willing to make some sort of swap where we end up with Shaedon Sharpe and somebody back from somebody else. I mean, look, there's a ton of scenarios here that would make a lot of sense, and there's a lot of ones that are dumb, too. I don't think our front office is going to make a dumb move. If they make a trade, I feel like I'm going to be pretty pleased with it.
I agree with you, Peach. I think our front office has done enough to garner my trust, the trust of the Orlando Magic community. It feels like that's the sentiment shared by everyone out there in the Twitterverse and online. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we're going to trade the number 1 overall pick. I'm looking at the list here, and so if Shaedon Sharpe really were the guy that the front office was in love with, people think he's going to go between that 4 and 6 range,
right?
Probably 4 or 5. So that's the Sacramento Kings at 4, Detroit Pistons at 5. Detroit Pistons got the short end of the stick this year like we did last year. They fell to that 5th spot. I was watching Ku Khalil on Locked On Pistons, and that community is obviously kind of feeling like how we were feeling last night. On the outside looking in of what's been touted as this year a 3-player draft. Last year was called a 4-player draft.
Right.
They are definitely interested in making moves to potentially get up into that. And they've got Jeremy Grant, who they've been trying to move. That would require some contract pieces to go along with it, but that could include a Mo Bamba sign and trade or something along those lines as well.
Scenarios.
There's so many scenarios. I'm sure we'll get into more of those. Do you think, ladies and gentlemen, that there's a chance that we move on from this number 1 pick? I hope not. I hope we take Paolo Banchero and screw the rest. Let everyone get giddy over Jabari Smith Jr. and Chet Holmgren and whoever's after that. But I want Paolo Banchero.
Well, point made, but I think we could still end up with Paolo as part of some sort of a trade by some other team wanting to move up or something like that. So, I mean, either way, I feel like it's good. But I'd be interested to know, give me some of your wacky trade scenarios. You know what? I normally don't like to get into that, but if you comment on our videos, I'll have to go look at them and see what people think is a good idea. And I'll tell you why you're wrong or right. Because I see so many of them where I'm just like, what is this person thinking?
Oh,
like,
yeah, they get goofy, man.
People get weird.
Acting
But
like
I'm
other
willing
team
to entertain ones that would be interesting.
Yeah. I could see the Oklahoma City Thunder, if they love Chet or Jabari Smith and they're afraid we're going to take him, they've got a huge stock of draft picks.
If you come up with a good one, we'll bring it up on our next full actual show, and we'll discuss it as a possibility.
Yes. So send those possibilities to us. Comment on the video, ladies and gentlemen, at Court_Cousins on Facebook and Instagram. Let us know what you're thinking. Subscribe and like. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Thanks for coming.